Hey people, it is Friday, June the 9th. Time is 4:55 in the afternoon. It's currently 20 degrees Celsius. And I'm on Avenue Road. And we're looking south. And for this walk, I thought I'd do something a little fun for me. I'm going to walk around the northern end of downtown, the Bloor-Yorkville area, and as far south as Wellesley Street. And I'll be walking past a number of construction sites for new high-rise towers and skyscrapers that are underway in this end of downtown. And we'll start right here with one across the street called 89 Yorkville, which is just starting to rise out of the ground here. And it's going to be, I think, the smallest building on this walk. This will come in at only 20 stories, around 250 feet or 76.5 meters. But this may be my favorite building currently under construction in the north side of downtown, because it will be a very narrow, high-end building that will completely fill that space between its two neighbors. And from the looks of it, it will be probably one of the classiest small apartment buildings in the city. No doubt it will be extremely expensive. Has a great street presence, reminiscent of something you might see on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So let's just head a bit further south down here on Avenue Road. I'll take us to the next building, which is literally just a block down. And rush hour is underway. I think on Fridays, though, rush hours aren't quite as busy as they are in the middle of the week. And that's Yorkville Village, a shopping mall just across the street. It's a high-end shopping center. Not very large. I have done a walk through there before in a previous video. And right next door to Yorkville Village is the next building that is yet to rise out of the ground. Some of the other ones we'll be passing are well underway, though, and are already impacting the skyline. But these two here are yet to come out of the ground. And this one here is called 138. It's another high-end residential building. This being Yorkville, it goes without saying that almost any new residential building constructed in this area will be very high-end. And this one will be just 29 stories, but yet it'll be 427 feet, which is extremely tall for a building with only 29 floors. 130 meters. So that leads me to believe that this building will have very high ceilings. The ceiling heights in the units will probably be much higher than typical, which you often do find in high-end buildings. And it looks like they just got their crane. I don't like the design of this one as much as I do the first building up the street, but it'll be a nice addition to the area, though. So now we're going to make our way through Yorkville before we get to our next building. We'll get another look at the construction site here. This pit must be extremely deep, because that tower crane is almost completely below ground, except for the boom. Oftentimes these buildings have multiple levels of underground parking, as many as 5 or 6 or 7. They have this fenced off so like solidly though that I don't think I can get a proper look down into the pit, just to see how deep it is. There's the Hazelton Hotel. So the next building is on Bay Street. That one also has yet to rise out of the ground, as we'll see shortly. And Yorkville Avenue is fairly busy right now. Something smells very yummy around here. There are many great restaurants in the Yorkville neighborhood, obviously. If you're willing to pay, that is, and you will be paying. And it looks like they've closed off Bel Air Street again this year. That's good to see. Nice block-long outdoor patio. I was hoping they would do that, and it looks like it's going to be an annual thing. I think the entire neighborhood should be closed off to cars, personally. I think Yorkville is almost tailor-made to be a pedestrianized area, as is Kensington Market. Two wildly different neighborhoods, but both with narrow streets and sort of a self-contained nature. And here's Bay Street. just head up one block here to Scollard. You can see the next building on the list. That one is called 50 Scollard, and it's just getting up to about 3 floors above ground level now, but it will eventually rise to 41 stories, or 484 feet, which is 148 meters, which is almost skyscraper status. A skyscraper is considered a building of 500 feet or 150 meters, so this comes very close to being an official skyscraper, but not quite. And this design is very handsome. I've seen in the renderings. I think it'll do a lot for the skyline here in the Bloor-Yorkville area. And there are 2 more towers under construction just around the corner. And the next 2 are very tall. Back onto Yorkville Avenue. And there you can see both of them in one shot. One is well above ground, the other one is yet to reach ground level. And there's another building rising in the background, which we'll get to a bit later. So this one here, which is mostly a giant pit with a crane, it's called the Pemberton, and it will rise to 68 stories, which is 208 meters, or I should say 216 meters, or 708 feet in height. So that's a very tall building. And right next door, you can see this building is starting to go skyward. And that one is called 11 Yorkville, or 11 YV. And it will rise to 62 stories, or 699 feet, or 213 meters. So just a tad shorter than its neighbor will be. So these 2 will bring a lot of massive height to the north end of the downtown area. Oh, looks like we caught some firefighters in action here. And I should mention that right next door is the Four Seasons, which was built over 10 years ago. And that was the first building over 200 meters built in the Bloor-Yorkville area. But now it'll be one of many. It will no longer stand out the way it did when first built. And even now it still stands out somewhat, but less so with every passing year. This is the Yorkville branch of the Toronto Public Library. And right here, you can see this building here, but right next door there's a slightly shorter building you can see poking out. That one is still under construction. It's topped out and close to completion, but it's not officially completed yet. And that one is called 8 Cumberland, and it's 51 stories, which is 558 feet or 170 meters, so it does classify as a skyscraper, being over 500 feet or 150 meters. So it will join its 2 neighbors in the skyscraper rankings of downtown Toronto. It should be complete probably later on this year. So now we're coming up to Yonge Street. I was going to cross there, but I think I will wait to get a better look at the next building on the list, which is just across Yonge Street. And there you can see that very tight site will soon be home to another tower. This one not quite as tall. The Adagio, 26 stories, which is 279 feet. So that'll be one of the shorter buildings on the walk, but crammed into that very, very tight site, preserving the historic building in front. So these are just the under construction buildings that I'm pointing out here. There are many proposals all throughout the neighborhood that have yet to break ground, including right here on this site. You can see a development notice. So these proposals move forward. There will be many, many more skyscrapers popping up all around the area. There's a proposal here for a 50, 66, and 69 story building. So in another year or two, I'll probably have to do an updated walk once all these new buildings break ground. And here we are at Yonge and Bloor. I'll just cross over here to get a better look at what will be the granddaddy of buildings in the north end of downtown, and maybe in the entire city, depending on how things pan out. And that is this monster right here, which I've pointed out many times before.
Hi, quick question. What do you think?
That one is called The One, and it may be the tallest building in Canada. There's another building at the south end of downtown under construction that is in a bit of a height race with this building. They both applied for height increases while construction is already underway, trying to outdo one another. So this one, if its height increase is granted, will rise to 94 stories, which is 1,110 feet, or 338 meters, which is not only a skyscraper, it is considered a super tall skyscraper. Any building over 300 meters or 1,000 feet is classified as such. And this is a very high-end building, anchoring one of the most important intersections in downtown Toronto. And I believe the base will be a flagship Apple store with some hotel units above and then residential above that. So it's a mixed-use tower. Definitely one of the more exciting buildings currently being constructed not only in Toronto but in all of Canada. So we will head east down Bloor Street East now. There are still a few more buildings on the list. As I mentioned, I'm not going to go any further south than Wellesley Street. I think that would probably be considered the southernmost street that you could go and still be within the northern half of downtown.
I stayed on.
You could catch a glimpse of one of the buildings we'll be pointing out soon. We're going to head up to Church Street and then we'll start heading south. Alright, we are on Church now. And there are a couple of buildings up ahead which are right beside one another. Both of them are on Charles Street, which has seen an insane level of high-rise development over the last 10 years. Almost there. You can see these old historic homes with the steel reinforcements. They're being preserved as part of this development, which we're just passing by now. And this one is called the Charlesette Church. And it's just recently got its crane and is just starting to rise out of the ground. And this one will be a 47-story tower. 501 feet in height, which just puts it over the skyscraper mark. Just barely qualifies as a skyscraper. You can see the crane in the background. And the old Manhattan apartments, which are being preserved, which will make up part of the podium of the building. So as I mentioned, that one will be 501 feet, which is 153 meters. And the renderings I've seen of that, I'm not too thrilled about the design of this building, but it will bring another tower to the skyline. I'm not going to complain too much. It's not terrible, just not the greatest in my opinion. But right across the street is its neighboring building under construction. This one is called 55C, which stands for 55 Charles. And it is a 50-story tower, or it will be a 50-story tower. 548 feet, or 167 meters, which also puts it in the rankings of skyscrapers. And as you can see, Charles Street here is many tall new towers extending all the way down. And this area often gets lumped in as part of the Bloor-Yorkville neighborhood, even though it's sort of equally close to the Church Wellesley neighborhood. Another shot of the one. This building will be making many dramatic appearances in various vistas looking from different spots around downtown. Eventually it will be visible from all around the city. I find it exciting when a building starts to reach towering heights that make it possible to see it from a long distance away. We're just passing by a bit of a sketchy stretch here on Church Street. And there is the one once again. It won't be long before it surpasses the height of the CIBC office tower across the street. At one time, that building and the neighboring Hudson's Bay office tower were two of the tallest buildings in the north end of downtown, along with the Manulife Center, which you can see right up ahead there. They dominated the north end of the skyline. Now in recent photographs, they're barely even noticeable. There's so many taller towers all around them. Alright, back to Yonge Street. And of course I didn't mention 1 Bloor East, which is currently the tallest building in the north end of downtown. That one is 76 stories, which is around 260 meters, I believe.
Got both in inferiority.
And I'll take us down to Wellesley for the last tower on the list. Of course, there are many, many more towers south of Wellesley throughout the rest of downtown that are on the rise. I think altogether in the city there are over 30 skyscrapers under construction currently. Actual skyscrapers over 500 feet or 150 meters. So over 30 at once under construction is kind of mind-boggling. And if you include shorter towers of 400 feet or taller, there are many, many more added onto that number. It's a true historic building boom in the city. And I didn't know whether to include this one or not. This is a recent build. It's pretty much complete. It's called the Ivy. So I thought that one was too far along to be included as considered under construction. It's all but finished. And that one's about 36 stories. As you can see, there are tall towers going all the way down Yonge Street. Many of which were just built in the last 5 to 10 years. Or sooner. Some just within the last few years. You can see a crane popping up over the roofs of the buildings on Yonge Street, and that will be the last building on the walk.
In a very heavy Chinese accent.
Alright, here is Wellesley Street. And there you can see the final building on the walk, documenting the tall towers under construction in the north end of downtown, north of Wellesley Street. And this one is called 8 Wellesley, and it will rise to 55 stories, which is 598 meters, or 182, or 598 feet, I should say. 598 meters would be taller than the CN Tower. So 598 feet, or 182 meters. And this one has quite an interesting design, which I am very fond of. And it will be a dramatic addition to the Yonge and Wellesley area. Right across from its newly completed neighbor here, Wellesley on the Park. That's a 60-story tower that was completed a few years ago. So it'll be almost the same height. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the walk around the north end of downtown, taking a look at some of the skyscrapers and tall residential towers that are transforming the city as we speak. I think we looked at 11 buildings. 7 of them were over 500 feet or 150 meters, so 7 skyscrapers out of 11 towers under construction. And as I mentioned before, there are many, many more skyscrapers and towers under construction around downtown and throughout the city. This is just a drop in the bucket here on this walk. But it would take me hours to walk around and do a full video of all of the buildings under construction. That might be something to do for a very long live stream, perhaps. So leave a comment down below if you enjoyed, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also be sure to hit that notification bell, that way you won't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal, as well as via my merch store. And there's also a super thanks button right down below if that's how you'd like to support the channel. And you can find me on Instagram under KContinuum. So thanks for watching. And be sure to keep checking back because, as always, I will continue.